What's going on, everybody? I'm John Stamper from John Stamper Media, and we are excited to continue this learning series with the amazing team from Scopic, AI innovations, digital healthcare, and business transformation. This is episode 6. And what we're going to cover today, everybody, is leveraging AI to build better solutions. If you take some time and go back through some of these other episodes and the opportunities that I've had to speak with the Scopic software team, we've covered a whole host of things. And as we've kind of put together the final pieces of this learning series, obviously AI is a big piece of this, especially in the coding world. And for those of you that are out there, you're a business, you're looking to build a platform for your business, websites, all of that, AI is definitely a piece of this. So I am very excited to have with me today Kyron Beckx and Hanjo Burger, who are in South Africa. What's been so cool for myself is being able to talk to people all over the world. But these two gentlemen happen to live within 5 minutes of each other. So this is actually a treat. Gentlemen, it's great to have you. How are you doing today?
Great, and thanks for calling us out, being 5 minutes away from each other, John. It's amazing.
Yeah. I love that. And I will tell you, like, the three of us have been trying to get this scheduled for a while. So I'm so excited that we finally got this. We're going to cover a lot of great things today. So here's where I thought we would start. Kyron, I'd love to have you share with everybody a little bit of your background, some of your history, like in this space, and then on you, we'll come over to you.
Sure. I've been in my career for about 20 years now. Started on the sales and marketing side, more on the technical front, selling internet-based services, so cloud servers, domains, hosting. Then I moved into product management, spent about 15 years there in product management now, with the last 5 years at Scopic specifically. And the last 2 to 3 years specifically has been focused in on the AI side of things, so trying to help businesses with their AI strategies.
Awesome. On you?
Yeah, our histories are actually pretty much aligned. I also started marketing, and then moved to the web side of things, more from a creative standpoint, and very much focused on client relations as well. So, through time, that's become stronger and taken kind of center stage, but still definitely from a design and a creative perspective. And thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited for this. Okay, so I want to get us started and kind of tee this up. I'm going to go back to 2014 in one of my companies. I was building out this platform website that had all kinds of different applications in the dentistry space. And I remember the work that had to go into it on the front end, the planning and all of that. And when I think about where the world was development back in 2014 and where it is now, especially on the AI side, I wanted to start this conversation and have, you all talk about AI and how important it is in the discovery phase, meaning the things that a business have to think about in that early planning stage when they're building their site, they're building their platform, now that we have this world of AI. So as we go through this, everybody, we're going to kind of go back and forth between Kyron and on you as they have, different aspects of each one of these questions. So we'll kind of start there. Whoever wants to jump in and take this one, talking about AI and the discovery phase.
Yeah, sure. I think I may describe that one to start. So yeah, it's changed quite a lot, and it continues to change every single day. People come to us with that more traditional style. They think they need people think there's a lot of documentation needed, but what we're doing these days is actually just having a bit more of a discussion and getting the vision for the end product wrapped up nicely for a client. So we will start using AI tooling to actually create the end vision for our clients so they can see what it actually looks like in its final state and play with the prototype of that end to end and see if that's actually meeting their expectations. Because sometimes people will have an idea of what they think it's going to be, and once they've actually started visualizing it, that idea changes quite a bit. So traditionally there would just be a lot of documentation. Everybody will write things down and plan out what your end software may look like. But now people are more hands-on, so it's tactile. You get to see what you're actually doing and see your product come to life a little bit more visually in a very basic way. And we're using AI tools to help clients see the end goal a lot quicker than they would have traditionally. Months down the line, you would start actually seeing the designs come together. But now we kind of work from the end goal back, I'm finding, in some of the work we're doing.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I think back to those times and I think about having a planning session and then putting stuff on a board. And then to your point, waiting a week, waiting 10 days to see kind of the coding that got done. It seems like now for a business, you can see that, like you mentioned, very quickly and utilizing these AI tools, which is exciting. And then on you, any thoughts, from your perspective, just on this topic?
I think that's exactly it. I think that's looking at it from a very administrative side, where you can really see things speeding up in general. Obviously, it's early days. I think we alluded to the fact that in a month's time, this conversation is going to be completely irrelevant. But as it stands, we need to look at it from an assistance point of view, right? So all of these administrative tasks that we've had before really gets sped up. And I think that's just, beneficial to clients in general to get to a point where John, I think, as you mentioned as well, something tangible, right? Like looking at something, seeing something, being able to have a look at it is super helpful, and has been in the last couple of months, or years in general. And I think that in time will probably just improve, especially from the administrative point of view. Obviously, these models need something to train on, and as we go along, and it's knowledge can grow and grow. I guess we're going to see different paths being taken. But yeah, for the time being, that's been super helpful.
So to Anyu's point, everybody, because the information that we're going to share today, things are changing so fast and it might be irrelevant in 30 days. The Scopic team is going to put this video out like 3 times a day for the next 30 days to make sure you can understand everything they're talking about. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, Anyu, right? Because that is kind of the world where the world is going. And I think that's what's so exciting about capturing this, because I think we're going to be able to document, as you all are doing, the different tools that you're able to use for clients, but then more importantly, also setting the stage and the right expectation for them that things are going to evolve. And that's part of the dynamic process. And that's one of the things I've learned in working with all of you is you are working side by side with your clients, that as things shift and change, they have you all there as that sounding board and that foundation to rely on, which is super important.
And it is. And I think from that progression standpoint, it's very important to stay on top of things, in terms of software, especially. And I mean, we all know that something is being released every single week. In the news, you can't stay on top of it. The acquisitions, for instance, where the landscape is shifting to in terms of AI in general. So it's definitely staying on top of things that's really important at this point.
And John, just to add to that, I mean, we can't give away our secret sauce, but we're working behind the scenes on our own supportive tooling. So we've realized ways we can optimize our processes internally. We can't speak too much about that, just to not give away to our competitors. Yeah, but we've found some really cool ways of just taking everything we've learned over the last 15, 20 years from every sales call, and taking the principles from those, and how what has worked, what hasn't worked, and being able to leverage that with using AI to actually just have the most streamlined, ask the best questions, get the best results for our clients possible.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know you all do a lot of work. One of the industries you do work in is in the healthcare space. And one of the things that I've seen in software, just in dental practices in the last couple of years, is a lot of these newer technologies and software that they're using was designed to help the practice make the patient experience better. However, what they're finding is those tools are also helping them in their dental practice, things become more efficient. So I think I'm glad that you brought that up, Kyron. I think on the AI side, that is really exciting, that as you all see what these tools are capable of, you kind of put them aside and say, hey, we could use this for these processes while at the same time creating them for the clients, which is great. The next thing I wanted to ask both of you is how UXers are looking at AI in this new world. Maybe kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, and it definitely ties into what we've already been discussing, at least from an administrative point of view. But this is kind of where it starts getting interesting, right? Because now we're blurring the lines between, the design and the creative side of things. I guess, UX forms a big part of that, but that's where you start looking at bridging the gap between, getting an idea or a concept and bring that to life. And that's where it becomes a little bit more difficult, not for us, but for AI in general, because now you're looking at these applications, again, having to learn on something or train on something. And mimicking what we've been doing for so many years, it's not going to happen overnight. I think if you look at the same thing in something like the music industry, film industry, and places like that, you can very much, compare it with that, where AI can get you 80% there, but it's not going to get you over the line. At least not at this point. Again, let me just try and safeguard myself for the in a month's time thing. But yeah, 80% there. You still need, and this is really, I've been hammering on this for a while now. This is where you need orchestrators, right? You need somebody to bring that idea and to be able to articulate the idea, to put it down, to put the ideas down, to bring that across to the client. And that's something that we've really seen that hasn't been replaced yet. The way I picture things long term is that these orchestrators are going to become more and more important as we go along. Where you have these key figures that has all the knowledge that brings all the pieces together, and really drive it forward, especially from a client-facing perspective, right? And it's really just building on top of what you've seen in the past.
Yeah, and I have an analogy. I was just thinking about this as you were mentioning this on you, and it's I'm gonna trying to make a comparison between painting a room or rooms in a house and AI, right? You go to the paint store, you've got all the individual swatches of the different colors of paint. And then a lot of times they'll have that book right there where they'll show you what that paint looks like on a particular wall. And so to your point, from the design perspective, right, there's the element of knowing and understanding how those tools could work, but how they work together. And I love the term that you used, orchestrating all of that. I really feel like that's where companies, and especially on the Scopic side and the development side, you all are putting a big focus is on that piece, right? As being kind of the orchestrator to it's one thing to say, oh, this pink looks really cool. Looking that against the other walls, against the trim, against the furniture, obviously, could be a very different thing. So
if we're going to analogy,
I'm going to steal that analogy for sure. Sorry, Kai, but I'm definitely going to be stealing that analogy. I usually use the one from a development perspective. And I think it rings true for many, of the areas as well. It's like a production line for a car. AI can at the moment distinguish between car parts, but putting that car together, it's still slightly struggling with. And I think that's where we find ourselves. And it's going to be very interesting because in the end, it's an information game, right? And the data has to come from somewhere. Right. And where that goes, nobody knows. We'll just be speculating at this point. Sorry, Kai, I was interrupting you.
No, I interrupted you. But yeah, if you're going with the analogies, you mentioned it there, like with film, it's directors, right? Knowing when to use CGI. Yes, CGI exists, but you can't make your entire movie out of CGI, right? But it's knowing how to find the balance between when to use the old school methods and when to use the new school. Because obviously CGI costs and you've got to invest a certain amount of your budget in that. So yeah, it's an interesting time. And the people, especially we're in quite a lucky position because what we've been doing is directing developers over time, right? So our roles are to, translate requirements into what developers need. So we're in a lucky position where we get to actually, now instead of translating that to developers, you're now translating that to AI, which can output the work. So it's a really interesting time, and it's just going to keep changing.
Well, and I think that's been one of the biggest takeaways I've had in getting the opportunity to speak with all of you from Scopic for this learning series is as things change, you all are in it every day and you're learning it. I think of it like any other industry where this is what you guys do day in and day out. This is what you live and breathe. And so as things change fast, businesses are going to want to work with companies that are in this all the time, versus kind of hopping in and out of things. Or in many cases, it can be very risky, in my opinion, and scary to do it by yourself or try to piece together some of these tools. I like tech. I've been using a lot of the AI, but there definitely are certain applications where I know that I would lean on somebody where this is what they do all day, all day, to move forward, especially in the case of a business. So it makes a lot of sense. All right. So the next thing I wanted to ask is talk a little bit about rapid prototyping with AI.
Yeah. I would love to grab that one just to start. It's actually making the job specifically really enjoyable because, as a product manager now, I get to see what the end results are. You work through the interfaces yourself now because there's tooling that you can use to actually work from the end result back. So you play with it and you get a feel for it. You identify issues that you never would have picked up if you were just writing your old school technical specifications, right? Like getting hands on with that thing, you'll realize, oh wow, what about this point that you'll hit this block? And in the past, you may not have noticed that until you're in the development phase. So now you're getting to see these things in real time, solve the problems in real time. And it's a common thing in our world where you want to plan twice, build once, right? Because once you get to development phase, it costs 10 times more than in your planning phase because there's just so many more people and so many knock-on effects for decisions made later down that pipeline. So rapid prototyping is probably the most useful tool now because we'll go from the first sales call with a client to a rapid prototype the next day that the client can actually see and we can show them, is this the vision that you were thinking of for your product? And sometimes it'll completely evolve from that first idea to something completely different because it sparks ideas in the client's mind about other ways you can take their product. And that's super, super valuable because typically they would have only started experiencing that once they're 60% of the way into their budget and the development is starting to come to life. And we're asking them to start testing the software. And that's, again, too late in the process for them to start really giving their insights on what could change because, yeah, it's just so nice being able to have hands-on with your clients straight away from the beginning of the relationship rather than waiting until months into the development cycle. Don't know if Hanjo has anything to add there.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And I think the important thing to realize is that it puts the right people in the right rooms, right? And that's what's so nice about this is the fact that the same people that have to convey that message from a client, for instance, can put this, into something that's functional. And that's something we haven't really seen before. Or John, like you said, it might take weeks. And that brings me back again to my point of the administrative side of things, right? So speeding that up, that process up is a wonderful thing. It's maybe not 100% there. It might be your 70 or 80% there, but it puts that idea and that creativity at the forefront, which is great. From a design perspective, it's also interesting. We find ourselves kind of clashing with what AI brings to the table when it comes to creative, right? And trying to out-design it has really become a thing. But the interesting part of it is now you mix that development side with the design as well. And you can very easily grab ideas from the development side, which is, let's say, far more developed in terms of AI at this point, which brings new ideas. And again, it just keeps going around until you get the right thing in front of clients.
Sorry, one other thing here is that it's not great for us, but it helps everybody, is that sometimes we pick up that with certain clients, they will realize their idea is almost a non-starter, right? It can, and that just saves, obviously it can be beneficial for us to have gotten a project to a certain stage, but there's also very sad where you see someone's invested a lot of their time and their money and it's gotten to a point now where their heart's broken. They realize their idea is not going to work because there's dependencies on third parties that they just can't get that data for, or there's just not a good product market fit when they're actually seeing the thing in their mind that it just doesn't really translate the same way once it's in an app, for instance. And that saves people a lot of money, and people can use those ideas on something else and add more value in the world. So it's just so valuable overall to get that, not just from an end result, but from helping people invest in the right things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of investment, I think long term, it's the same with app development. Really, if you think back in the day, anybody could put an app out there, but you need a lot of knowledge to get that done, right? And it's like it's a throw it until it sticks kind of approach. Whereas now you can very quickly get something in front of investors as well. And I think that's kind of what Kai is also trying to say is, quicker to market, but not necessarily market. You can get it in front of investors immediately, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about, here's another analogy I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on, right? You think about a lot of the A/B testing that was done in the email world. When I think of how a lot of businesses now are utilizing social media, they're creating content. They're utilizing, organic means to put it out on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and kind of see what type of content is resonating with their audiences. And then once they get those statistics, then they're making decisions when they start to spend their money on paid ads and things like that. And so I'm excited about what you all are talking about, because it feels like for any business owner out there that has an idea, You've seen it way more than I have, but I have experienced business owners, like you mentioned, Kyron, they get really excited, and then they get even more excited when you all start to build something and they see that this is a reality, yet no confident idea that the customer is going to put their credit card in and they're going to pay, or they're going to write them a check for their business. And that is a very emotional piece, right? I mean, I've been down this path before about being excited about solving a problem in the marketplace, but not really knowing if the marketplace was going to acknowledge it. And so now I think this topic that you all bring up is very relevant in the software development side, which I think is exciting. And I think it's another value add to have the resource foundation that you all can bring to these companies. And it almost feels like, I'm curious of your thoughts. Maybe this is the next question where I wanted to go on how product managers are now going to help brands test these things in the market. Like, is that kind of the next stage of this? That was the next question that I had for you all, but is that kind of where we're going?
Yeah, it's like you mentioned A/B testing now, and it is actually going to move to product instead of a feature. It's going to be, we're going to work with companies to test 6 to 7 different products in the market before building anything, right? Like that, right. Because you're going to be able to get a sample product out there, let people see how it's going to work, try it out. So the whole world may change in that sense, where it's so quick to build software that the ideas are the thing that matter, right? It's not even about. It used to be the limiting factor was the cost to build the software. Now it's about the right ideas, finding those niche markets that were underserved, and testing ideas constantly until you find something that really works.
I do still think, though, that good quality products are still going to, float. I think we're going to see an influx of subpar products, and I think we're already seeing that, not just from a product perspective, but from a social media perspective. Like I mentioned, music, things like that. It is definitely just this influx of subpar material that's out there. And interestingly, what's been happening recently is it's getting full circle. The models need to train on something, but there's so much AI content out there that these models are now training on AI content, right? So who knows where that's going to go? But I do think it's going to equal out, and balance is going to be restored. Let's put it that way. And good quality products will always float.
If everyone's got the same AI, right? If everybody's got the same tooling, the differentiator is the people behind the tooling, right? Otherwise, everybody there won't be any difference between any products out there, and everything will become generic.
Yeah, no question. Well, it's interesting. I think along those lines, Kyron, I think about the speed of everything. And I think in the past, when there was a new technology, or to your point, there was a new way to put creative into the marketplace or a product into the marketplace, it took longer to get that feedback. It also took a lot longer for more and more people to flood the market with, like you mentioned, subpar products and ideas. Well, now, because that's speeding up, it does put people in a situation where there are going to be a lot of subpar things out there, and people are going to learn that they're subpar, hopefully more quickly, right? And so whether you're a business or whatever the case may be, and I'm encouraged as somebody that helps companies create content, I am encouraged that this wave of AI, which is coming fast, and I watched a lot of businesses wanted to build a lot of their content on AI, their end users and their target audience are really realizing quickly that they want more authenticity. They want more authentic content. They recognize that you could utilize the AI as a tool to maybe create more. But what they're really excited about, and the pendulum is already swinging to what you're saying on you, which is the consumer is looking for authenticity. So I think that, that falls back into exactly what you all are saying, and a good lead in to this last question that I wanted to talk to you both about, which is bridging that gap between the creative and the development. So that's maybe kind of a good way to bring us home, and whoever wants to jump in on that one, that's a good one.
I'll definitely grab that one. So again, this is where it really becomes interesting, because in the past, what we've seen is you've had your creative side take care of the first part of a project, right? This moves through to development and then goes through to testing. So it was a hard and fast rule, and that's just how it works. And if you don't bring those parts together, then again, you're going to have a subpar project. Whereas now with AI, again, it's really a data thing in the end. And I think a lot is going to boil down to how those pieces are going to fit together, because currently I don't feel they are fitting together. If you look at the creative side of things, you've got all these design applications and companies. I'm not going to mention any names, but these guys all want a model to train on what their clients and their end users have been creating, right? Because this has to come from somewhere. It has to come from somewhere. And what we find with enterprise applications, in the end, a lot of it is gated, right? It's not publicly available. It's not something that can be trained on. So you're looking at a lot of these design companies now struggling to try and find, something to train on and blend that in with the development side of things. Is it going to happen soon? Yes, it will. Is it already happening? Kind of. These guys are trying to merge all of these parts, and they're doing it in different ways. A lot of people are still focusing on the development side of things, where I think it's more factual, right? Less opinionated, and trying to take it from that angle. But I think that if it's being taken from the other angle, from the creative side, we might see good applications or frameworks out there that will get us across that line. When all of these parts merge, again, administrative, speed-wise, things are going to be much better, help us out a lot. And I'm going to go out on the limb and say that the orchestrators that we see today aren't really going to step aside just yet.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Kyron? I've got a fun idea I want to share, but any kind of thoughts on that bridging the gap?
No, nothing else. I think Hanyo's covered everything here. It does. I agree with you that it feels like even in the highest level of what people are doing, everybody's reaching for something to say that they've got AI, but I think most people are realizing that the things they needed to be tracking and have always needed to be tracked to really put the value add into their businesses and their products, they've only identified, oh, we needed that data and we aren't tracking it, right? And we need to start from day one. So everybody is busy collecting that secret source data in their businesses to really enhance their products. And they only started it recently, and we're going to take a year or two until that has kind of built up a year's worth of data, and then you can actually start using that in a meaningful way to train models. So unfortunately, a lot of companies are realizing that they needed to have spent a little bit more time looking at what they could track and what metrics were useful for AI. So entire teams are going to start just looking at your existing products and tracking every single little thing that you can to use that to then future train the model. So very excited to see what goes the next year or two, especially around that.
Yeah, no question. And, it's interesting to kind of bring us home. I'll use another healthcare analogy. When I look at dentistry, in the early days of a patient, any of us really, whether it be going to the dentist or going to your physician, of when Google came about, and you had the situation where we as patients could then do what we called like Dr. Google, right? We could type into Google, we had a symptom or something that we were, concerned about. And then they would take that to their physician or their dentist and be like, well, I went out here and I looked at this and I know what you're telling me and all your years of education, like this is kind of the way it is. And at first that was really scary, both for clinicians and dentistry, like in the dental world. One of the things that I've observed though, is that on the flip side, those industries have always wanted the patient to be more educated about their own health. And so I see this world now where they're coming in and asking questions, which is then orchestrating a conversation for the clinicians to be able to share with them how important their oral health is. And I think it's making everybody better. I think it's making the patients more aware. I think it's making, healthcare better. And I love how you all kind of put this together, because I think that's what we're going to see in this world, right? I think to your point on you, there's going to be more and more businesses that have access to see what's going on out there. So there'll be more data sets to kind of chew on to see things that worked and didn't work. Maybe things they didn't think about in the past. But I see a world where then they're going to bring that to all of you, ask better questions. That makes you all better at your craft. And then ultimately, I feel like as time goes on and things start to pull through, better products get built. So any kind of final thoughts on that? I mean, this has been really great to kind of hear both of your sides and kind of where this is going in the development space.
I think you summarized it perfectly, John. We should all be excited about it. We should be excited to, as to where it's going. There's been, a lot of churning in the industry about, who's going to be left at the end? Is everybody just going to, lose their jobs and things like that? But I do think that's the wrong way of looking at it.
Yeah.
We should see it as assistance, which essentially it is, and I think it is going to be for a long time. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I was skeptical at first, but I think I've become a convert in the end.
Yeah. Hey, there's never, it's interesting. I guess if we were to all study history and different types of technological revolutions, right? I mean, I think that having an element of skepticism is never a bad thing. I think it, like, to your point, I think it makes all of us look at the things that we should ask, the types of questions that we should. I think of my kids now. I think of the questions that they're asking me, and it's like, as a parent, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the parent. You're not supposed to ask me that. But the reality is that when I really step back and try to put myself in hopefully a role model position, I love the fact that they're asking them those questions, and they have access to information that we didn't have. And to your point, how great is that? So, well, gentlemen, this has been great. Really want to thank the both of you for your time. And our hope is that as we tie together all of the conversations that we've had for this learning series, those that are out there that are businesses that want to create software in this new world, especially being able to leverage AI, you can pull from a lot of the things that these two gentlemen shared today. So, any final thoughts before we wrap?
No, I guess we'll see you in a month or two when things change and we have to do this all again.
Yeah, exactly. Dial me up. We will we'll pull some clips from this one. We'll actually focus on the things that have changed, that don't exist anymore, and you guys can talk about the new things. I love it.
You can use the B-roll and just change the video in a month's time. Imagine.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, listen, best of luck to you all. Again, anybody that's watching this, I know the Scopic team will have any information on there about how you can learn more about Scopic, working with this great company. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to speak with all of them. They're all over the world. And more importantly, have these conversations about the great work they're doing. So, gentlemen, have an awesome day.
Thanks. And thanks for having us.
Absolutely.